Should all be seeing my PowerPoint scrolling through several pages. A lot of the things going on at SBE. I list everybody that registered for this meeting so that we don't have to do introductions during the meeting. Take up time that way. You can take a look and see who might be joining us. They don't always join after they register, but get an idea of who they are, where they're from, and what their job is.
We can see you. I can't see your presentation.
You can't?
Nope.
Vinny, do you see it?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I hit the wrong button. It's me being tired after working all day.
Tom's a slave driver, isn't he?
Oh, no. He's a sweetheart to work for.
I think I saw you once today.
Oh, we were both out of the office at the same time.
All right, time we get another minute or two. We'll get going here. And I'm not using my Bluetooth headphones tonight. I gave up on that with the mic cutting out all the time, getting garbled. I don't know why it does that with Bluetooth during a Zoom meeting, but it doesn't do that with Teams, and it doesn't do it with Skype. It does it with Zoom. I'm not sure why.
All right, don't jinx me because that's how I'm connecting.
Okay. I like the quality of those headphones. They're Crusher headphones, but the mic always gets garbled partway into the meeting. I have to exit the meeting, come back, and it's okay again for a while.
Yeah, Bluetooth sometimes can be black art.
Yeah.
How garbled it gets depends on how much wine you drink, doesn't it?
That's how gargled it gets.
It's not usually wine, but it's something else. Not tonight though.
I mean, not yet.
That's kind of what's nice about these Zoom meetings. I have a drink and nobody knows it. Well, it's 7:05. What have we got? 5, 10, 15, 18 people in out of 23 or 24 that registered. So maybe a few will. Let me just check my email because sometimes I get people that lose the registration link. Yep, here we go. David Turner would like the link, and I don't have it handy here on my phone, so bear with me.
I can put it in the chat for you if you want.
What's that?
I can put the link in the chat for you if you want.
Well, he can't get to it. Well, yeah, Tom can get to it, so.
It's David Turner. Oh. Find his email address. Maybe one of you can email it to him instead of me trying to shut down everything here on my computer to get to my email. It's dturner at mychamplainvalley.com. If somebody can email him that link, that would be great. dturner at mychamplainvalley.com. Somebody got that?
Yep, working on it. I might ask you for that email one more time. You said dturner at?
D as in David, Turner at mychamplainvalley.com.
Okay, link's on its way.
Great, thank you. Okay, get out of this PowerPoint. Let's get into the next one. I'll call the chapter meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. And we have these meetings monthly. Please feel free to invite a friend or coworker to join us and share the registration link with them. I prefer you don't share the Zoom link that you have them register, because that way we have a record of who's registered for the meeting. It keeps it in constant contact, and it gives me a database of people to email if we happen to cancel a meeting or change a meeting. So feel free to do that. We welcome Scott Michaels from Heartland Video Systems, who will be doing our presentation after a business meeting. Hope you weren't expecting Michael Scott from the office. It's Scott Michaels instead. So
Damn.
thank you, Scott. So we'll start off with the minutes from our January meeting. Vinny?
All right, minutes from the meeting of January 19, 2022, virtual via Zoom. Meeting was called to order at 7:05 by Tom. Minutes from the November meeting were read. Motion to approve by Gary Hartman, seconded by George Braungard. Motion passed. The minutes from the December meeting were read. A motion to approve by Jim Peck, seconded by Gary Hartman. Gary Hartman, motion passed. Treasurer's report, no income or expenses except for our minimum monthly credit card fees. Our taxes are due in July. A motion to approve by Tom, seconded by Jim Peck. Motion passed. Frequency coordination, nothing to report. Certification, nothing to report. Old business, there was none. Future meetings, February 16th will be Heartland Video, and March 16th will be SCMS. Officer elections begin in June. Nominating committee is now forming. National notes, the passing of Terry Bond was noted. 2 upcoming webinars and 3 Ennis workshops are also scheduled. See SBE.org for details. Certification exams for the June session, you need to sign up by April. Once again, go to SBE.org for details. Expo still on for September 29th. Planning stages are beginning. The Ramada received our concerns. We'll get back to us soon. Pricing will be set and we will move forward when we sign the contract. Committee meeting will be held soon. Contact Tom if interested in serving on the Expo committee. In other news, Nolan is leaving WNYT for Bit Central, and Chapter 1 has elected Gary Telkowitz as its new chairman. A motion to adjourn at 7:18 by Tom McNichol, seconded by Vinny. Motion passed. The program for that evening, Chuck Alexander from Burke Technologies on simple, scalable remote access in the NOC and the field. Any questions, comments, changes, concerns, obscenities?
We had SCMS doing a presentation in one of the months.
March, yeah.
Yeah, Jim's arranging for the presentations. He's finding people for it. I don't think Jim's doing it. Correct, Jim?
That's correct.
Yeah.
My sock shoe is very soft.
There are no other changes or corrections. Who would like to make a motion to accept the minutes as presented? Anybody? Chapter 22 member?
I will.
Anna Marie, who would like to second that?
Impact seconds.
Jim Peck. All in favor, Chapter 22 members? Aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Okay. Treasurer's report, Gary.
Okay, financially, we are basically the same as last month. However, as of today, we are insured. In arranging for the insurance, I had to give them a start date. So I figured, well, the date of our next meeting is as good as any. So if you feel any differently today, it's because you're insured, or we are insured anyway.
So if I slip off my chair during the Zoom meeting, I'm covered?
Somebody will come and cover you, yeah.
Probably the coroner.
Well said.
Okay, so that's paid for. And just so we're transparent with everybody, the cost of that was, it's for 1 year, ballpark.
Right, yeah.
How much was it?
Actually, they haven't billed us yet.
Oh, okay.
It can vary a little bit, but it will probably be about 670.
Okay.
Because we are choosing to pay it all at one time rather than on an
Right. And that covers us for our expo, just so everybody knows, for any liability issues we have there. So,
yeah, for 1 year from now.
right. Okay. Anything else?
Not on.
None on that.
treasury.
Okay. All right. I'll make a motion to accept Gary's report. Who would like to second that?
I'll second it.
Any? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Gary, frequency coordination and certification.
Okay, nothing on certification, on frequency coordination. I did get a communication about some kind of a testing process that's going on in Rome and 3 other locations. It's some kind of an experimental situation, and anyway, that has been extended or made permanent. It's not entirely clear here. From BAE Systems Information and Electronic Systems Integration Incorporated. And if somebody wants to see the license, I can put it up. Otherwise, nothing else in frequency coordination.
Okay. Was that low frequency stuff they were doing? Like down 60 hertz or below? Or is this something else?
I think this is something else. Let's see. Let me see if I can find. Let's see. New York City Racing System. Let's see.
I'm sure that's at a Rome lab and they're always doing something over there.
Yeah.
The fact that they let you know, that's nice. I'm sure they're doing things we don't know about.
Okay. Okay, I think the answer to your question is no. It looks like the frequencies that they are using are 2.0 through 29.9 megahertz.
All right.
You know, running down the list of all of them are that same frequency. Well, the frequency band.
If I had to guess, they're testing from Rome over to the Newport area where they've got, they put planes up on pedestals and test defense systems between plane and ground, plane and plane. It's more than likely where all that's happening. Okay. Any concerns, any comments on that before we move on? Does anybody have any other old business they'd like to discuss? If not, we'll start into new business. Here are future meetings. We do have presenters for March and April. March, we have, was it Rode or Rody? I'm not sure how you said it. I guess it's Rode Microphones. Ryan White from there will present Optimize Your Audio. And he wants it to be kind of an open discussion thing where, you know, if you have questions, and, you know, he'll go over some design ideas for setting up audio for different events and equipment you can use, but he wants input from our group too. Wednesday, April 20th, it's Eric Schaffner from Infinite Electronics, best practices of mitigating lightning or other transit voltage surge events. So we have lined up for March and April. We're still open for May. I'll be looking for somebody to fill that. June's normally officer elections. The chapter officers met since our last meeting. We met via Zoom and we discussed officer elections and thought it might be a good idea to put that off until we meet in person again, or at least maybe till after the expo. If there is somebody interested in running for chairman, vice chairman, or secretary, those are the positions that'll be up for grabs, then please contact either me, Vinny, or Kevin, or Gary, and let us know that you're interested so that we can start the process of moving towards elections. Certainly don't want to be tied to this forever. And I don't know, Vinny and Kevin, Gary still got a few more terms he can do, but our terms are up. So if we don't do it in June, then it's going to hopefully be by the end of the year. But if you're interested, contact one of us. You have our email addresses. Just let us know what you want. We have a new member in the chapter. I believe it's a student member, Michael Orr from SUNY Oswego. So I did send an email out and I welcomed him and let him know about our meetings, and hopefully he'll join us for one of them or more of them. We have notes from our executive director, Jim Ragsdale. He noted the upcoming webinars. There's one tomorrow. It's free. Staying compliant, lighting considerations for your tower. You can go to the SBE website and still register for that. They'll send you the link to the webinar. A week coming up on Monday, 3 p.m., another free one. It's a web extra that they just added, I think, yesterday. And it's all about the New York City public broadcasting launch of Next Gen TV. That should be interesting. February 24th is not a free one. That's Introduction to Successful Troubleshooting. And then they announced today that coming in April, they're going to do an 8-part series on CBNT and CBNE. It's supposed to help you get ready to take the exam for certification. So keep an eye out for that. I looked at the SBE website today. There's nothing on the website about it yet, but the email that I got said keep an eye out on their website for more information. There's an NS workshop coming up in Michigan, part of the Great Lakes Media Show, Wednesday, March 2nd, Thursday, March 3rd. So if you're interested in attending an NS workshop, look up the information on that on the SBE website and you can register there. Leadership Development Course, August 3rd through 5th in Atlanta, Georgia, Hyatt Place, Atlanta South. There's the information there. You can also go to the SBE website. It's $670 per SBE member, $725 if you're not a member. Covers the course materials, a light breakfast each day, classroom beverages, and access to the Leadership Development webinar series of 3 webinars. You can register up to 3 people from your organization at the SBE website. And become SBE certified. To take an SBE certification exam at your local chapter during the June 3rd through 13th exam window, you have to get your application into national by April 15th. We are we'll be coming up on the window for the membership drive. I believe it starts March 1st. So if you do recruit a new member, you'll get a discount on your 2023 membership dues, and you'll be entered into a contest for prizes that are donated by SBE sponsors. You should have something in the mail by now to renew your membership. Same price as last year, $85. Consider upgrading to the SBE Member Plus level for $175, which gives you unlimited access to all webinars at SBE at no additional cost. Student memberships stay the same at $25. Student and life members may choose to add the SBE Student Member Plus or Life Member Plus option for $90. Find all the information at sbe.org. If you didn't get the renewal in the mail, contact Scott Jones at SBE National. And there's information on the membership drive, March 1st. Update on our expo. I did get a contract back from the Ramada by Wyndham in Liverpool today with the corrections I had asked for. There were some typos. We just wanted to make sure everything was clear on it. And then we found a couple of things that were incorrect in the timings of events for national events mostly. So I sent that back and I'm waiting to get the revisions. Hopefully tomorrow I'll sign the contract. And Gary, they do not need a deposit. I asked Kate and Kate said no, because we have an account with them. They don't require a deposit for the show. So once that's signed, we'll be in good shape. I got a contract from Northeast Decorating a couple of days ago. It all looks the same to me, except they're now adding a $150 trucking fee. That's probably due to the price of gas,
Mhm.
diesel fuel. So that's kind of understandable. Other than that, I think all of the prices look pretty much the same. I think there's a couple of things that might be a couple bucks higher and a couple things that are a couple bucks cheaper. So I'll sit down and kind of make a chart of what we need and just make sure that everything looks, the total of what the bill is going to be is going to look the same as what we were expecting. The next thing we need to do is update the exhibitor database. I will get that out to the officers. As it stands now, I know a lot of exhibitors have moved, a lot of vendors have moved to different companies. Some have passed away. Some aren't working in the business anymore. So we need to take a look at that and get it cleaned up before we start emailing exhibitors about our show. At our officers meeting, we did discuss the rate for the show. We're going to try to keep it what we had proposed for 2020, and that's $750 per booth. Sponsorship levels, the same levels we had listed before, which is all on the website right now. We will start expo meetings as soon as I get these contracts signed and we clean up the exhibitor database. If you'd like to be on the expo committee, then please let me know and I'll include you in the meetings, and which will probably be via Zoom for the near future. Obviously, we're going to have some meetings at Ramada as we get closer to go over final details. I did get new menus from Ramada today and new AV equipment lists. All the pricing's the same as they were last year. No changes, no surprises. I will contact Jim Ragsdale at National, set up a Zoom meeting with him and go over National's details, because National will be joining us for their fall meetings at our show this year. That's it on Expo. Anybody have any questions? Concerns?
No.
Does anybody have any other new business? Who would like to make a motion to close the Chapter 22 business meeting?
So moved.
Who's that?
Vinny.
Vinny? Oh, okay. Who seconded it?
I
Who
think
was
it's
this?
Probably me.
Okay, Gary. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I didn't think so. Is there anything anybody would like to discuss with those attending tonight? Anything going on in your workplaces or in the business you'd like to talk about before we move on to the presentation? Quiet group.
Actually, I did have a question, and it's more of general interest than a specific thing. How many folks are planning on attending NAB? I heard secondhand today that PBS decided to discontinue its TechCon. I don't know if someone who is a PBS TechConner can give me confirmation of that, but that that particular group brings a lot of, well, it enables a lot of engineers to have cover to be able to have the business expense of coming to the NAB and attending not only the training sessions that TechCon does, but obviously the exhibitions as well.
Yeah, Jim, I heard the same thing, that it had been canceled or discontinued.
I haven't heard anything from the folks at the Association of Public Radio Engineers yet. I'll try to reach out to them tomorrow and see if that affects their thinking, because they had, made reservations and promises to their venue as well. It's unfortunate, but as we look at how many, especially the international companies that won't be able to bring anyone here at the moment, just getting to Canada and back is still quite a thing. with or without trucker blockades.
Avid is pulled out as well.
Yeah.
Have they?
Yep.
Stay tuned, I guess. We're getting close, but
Yeah.
the last year's fall event, it was only a couple of weeks ahead before they finally pulled the plug.
I'm hopeful for our show because some of the things I've been reading is, a lot of these companies do not want to do the bigger shows now, but they are still interested in small shows where they can contact small groups of customers. So I'm hopeful for that.
Well, depending on the topic, as long as we're still virtual, this is what we're doing right now is, I think, a very valuable service.
Jim, thank you for helping out with ranging presentations. It's been very helpful to me.
Well, some of it's self-defense because this way I can control at least topics that I'll have more of a direct involvement in.
Right.
Although I do sell microwave systems, so I'll be very interested to hear what Scott has to say.
We need a 1200 water at the station to heat up lunches and such. You got one?
Yeah, with an inverter.
Okay.
Do you have anything else? Now I'm going to turn things over to Scott and let him take it away. I'll unshare my screen and let you share yours.
All right, let's see if we can get that part of the technical hurdle going here.
Let's see. Gotta get to the unshare thing. That's not, my unshare is not popping up here. I gotta make this window smaller. There it is. Stop share. Okay.
I think I'm gonna do this. And then that, and then hit this. Okay. Am I coming through?
Yes.
Yes.
You are.
All right, first technical hurdle accomplished. All right. I was appreciate the opportunity to come and talk with this organization tonight. It's something that we really appreciate, and we really welcome the opportunity to come out and talk on different topics. And a lot of you know about Heartland Video Systems. I think my first trip for Heartland Video Systems back in 2004, 2003, 2004 probably, was a microwave install in Syracuse, as a matter of fact. So got several other systems that we've installed over the years in Syracuse as well. So I can say it's the only place that's got worse weather in summer than Wisconsin. As far as NAB goes, we're charging right along, and have been asked by the NAB to present an ATSC3 demonstration booth in the West Hall. So we are going to be there and in force and helping SBE to propagate, or NAB to propagate the ATSC3 deployments and rollouts, and presenting a rack of equipment and some example systems, 3 different examples of ATSC3 implementations, and that's moving ahead pretty strongly. And I did also hear a confirmation from TechCon that they're not going this year. I think it was more about they just did it in October virtually and opted to not follow up so quickly this time. So I don't know that it's over, but everything about NAB is changing pretty dramatically based on COVID. And so it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. They're not going to have the same strong attendance, and the whole industry is changing quite a bit over the last few years combined with COVID. So we'll see. Done a lot of analysis. I thought I'd push this picture out there, my Google Earth picture of probably a fraction of the paths that we've worked on over the last few years of coordinating and doing a lot more designing and implementing of systems for our customers. So we've got that, the that ability in Google Earth. I don't know how many of you have it, but it's a great tool to load the Cavell Mertz database in, and you can see all the Part 74 links that are licensed in the country are available there, and we use that quite regularly. I think we've already gone through the introductions. We're going to go through an STL TSL review, broadcast microwave, some fiber and internet, and then a few examples of equipments that we're selling for that, and then some questions if you have them. But feel free to jump in as we get through this. Some of you have been through this process with some of the processes of implementing microwave with me, I see. So some familiar faces out there, our names anyway. All right. So jumping into it, STLs and TSLs, I did the same presentation last week for a SMPTE organization in Detroit, and there was a lot of deer in headlights going on there for their main focus, mostly on video and audio, and not so much on the compressed domains and connectivity. So I think expect a little more understanding here, but requirements: STLs 20 megabits per second, TSLs, all they're starting to go the way of the dinosaur here, but generally getting a good TSL return on a 10 megahertz encoded stream. And then Ethernet, a lot of you have had the experience of T1 converted to Ethernet and getting 1.5 megabits, but with the modern equipment, the telco grade radios, we're now able to utilize all of your 75 megabits per second in your 25 megahertz span, and that means a whole lot of extra capability there that wasn't being able to be used in the DAR days, and then is now at your hands. People come to us occasionally and say, I want to get a gigabit across my microwave. Not in 25 megahertz, you're not. So we're maximum running 1024 QAM is 186 megabits per second. There's some clever things going on with 2+2 and 2+0 aggregating bandwidths that might get you double that, but that's even at that 1024 QAM on a standard ATSC1 link, you aren't going to be making the 5 nines that we generally design for, and that these links have been designed for at 16 QAM. Fiber, yep, there's fiber out there these days, and not as much to these transmitter sites. And as I've heard some customers say, you got no redundancy with fiber, so that backhoe takes you out and you're pretty much down. So while it's available, it's you don't own it, and you are recurring costs, and so it's not as well as whether fiber is getting to your transmitter or not. That's another issue. We now come up on the internet and ISPs, same kind of thing. 5 years ago, I wouldn't think about putting your STL across the internet, but it is becoming a thing nowadays, as long as you have your equivalent band or available bandwidth upload speed at your studios. That's usually pretty good to get 25 megabits per second. That's the error correcting plus the stream bit rate of 20 megabits, and downloads usually better. So make sure your transmitter site has a download speed of over 25 megabits to make this all happen. So we've been working in the FCC Part 74 band for all these years of my experience with microwave and broadcast world. Some years back, the FCC joined together the Part 101 and the Part 74. So broadcasters still have unfettered access to Part 74 and historical links that are already available and in use. But Part 101 gets us access to some of the 6 gigahertz upper and lower channels are pretty good for these applications. You get 30 megahertz channels instead of 25. And then there's a 13 gigahertz, really doing a lot less of those for microwave. There's just some susceptibility to rain in the 13 gigahertz. So I prefer to have a 1.5 mile 7 gig link than a 10 mile 13 gig link. It's not going to perform as well, and we're seeing that as we go through a pretty busy period of replacing microwave equipment these days. There's quite a run going on, and I think it's got a few more years left. We can sell protected equipment, so that means everything's backed up from your RF, your IF, and your baseband signal inputs. And also unprotected links are available if you're so inclined. Again, this is your link to your transmitter site, and generally people want that to be reliable. We'll talk more about that a little later as well. We've got all indoor. Just historically, broadcasters have invested in all indoor implementation. So you got no active components up on the tower, passive antenna, standard connectors, waveguide for 7 and 13 gigahertz. And that's generally what we sell. We also have available of outdoor equipment now, IP only radios, usually are power over Ethernet, as long as your overall length between the radio and the switch is less than 300 feet. We can get pretty good reliability there, all IP. We're starting to see more and more encoding systems being IP. So the only downside again is having an active radio on your antenna, and if it goes boom, you got to get a tower guy out to do that. So still pretty much staying away from that for majority of broadcasters are going all indoor and just replacing their radios. In the fiber and the internet world, we're talking about Mpeg-Over-Ip. So we're not talking about 2020, 2110 or any of those types of things. It's not even really 2022-7 is a lot harder to attain than you think. So Mpeg-Over-Ip encapsulated transport streams, they're pretty common nowadays in the encoding platforms. We're putting those out, and some of them are even adding some of the error correction schemes. So I did some tests many years ago where I just plugged in a encoder into a switch and a decoder out of that same switch, and packets get lost and out of order just that quick. So error correction is required. We've lived for quite a couple decades now on ProMPEG FEC. It's pretty much lived out its usefulness, I think, at this point. And now we've got the wrist, SRT, and more proprietary ARQ solutions. They're all pretty much the same thing, allowing for time for the link to request a recover packet and get that information back in time for it to go online and be part of your video stream is all very real today. And really wrist, SRT, they're all pretty much the same capabilities, just different standards that are competing right now. Bandwidth's 20 megabits per second. Again, the 5 megabits overhead is 25% overhead is highly recommended to accommodate any of these error correcting requirements. So in our world, we're selling the SAF Tanika Phoenix G2 equipments is our all indoor implementations. This company's out of Riga, Latvia, but they've got a presence in Denver. We've been working with them for almost 5 years now, and they had a really good platform before we came upon them. And we worked with them and their development teams to get an all a kind of a very similar footprint for connecting to the waveguide that looks a CMR connection connected up directly to the existing waveguide terminations that you use, even back to your DAR radio. So we're having very good success in replacing these in the same rack and footprint of existing systems. in 2+2, 1+1, or 1+0 kind of configurations with ASI. So that's another thing that SAF brought to us, was a integrated telco grade radio with ASI capability. They also offer T1 capability. Try to get people to kind of put that technology aside, but every once in a while we need it for some really legacy data transmission type things. But primarily it's ASI and IP, and ASI is a priority. And then you got Ethernet as a secondary use across that link. Most of the time that's control, command and control, monitoring and management. But as we get to the ATSC3 world, that'll be a very important part of your system. And so once you transition from ATSC1 to ATSC3, you can just reallocate, shut off those ASI ports and reallocate that bandwidth to your ATSC3. Those are generally 35 megabits per second is what we're seeing in the market these days as far as that. There was some talk way back when of that Sinclair was working on some technology that was going to require 125 or 150 megabits, but that's fortunately that's kind of gone back down to reality and 35 megabits. In the all outdoor, we sell the Integra GS. It's an IP only radio, and we can get that in a redundant protected configuration as well. They've got also some newer technology equipment that does XPIC and doubles the bandwidth, and we haven't made so much use of that because bandwidth really isn't the big driver in TV so far. It's really about a reliable link, and so the GS does what we need to do there. And then they even got some E-band stuff that they were selling pretty hot and heavy last year, around 80 gigahertz, but that's might as well string two cans and a wire to get that across the street for that. So we haven't really sold too much of that for broadcast. On the fiber and internet side of things, we use a combination of DTV Innovations equipments. The OX1 is a newer product they put out that's adopting SRT and implementing some RISC technology. And I don't know how many of you looked at the RISC capabilities, but there's an ever increasing suite of tools and techniques that are available there that just require more and more development by the manufacturers to get those things implemented. So there's an endless amount of capabilities there. And then the CX4 is the legacy Pro Mpeg FEC type of tool. So some of you may recognize the systems here, actually two different systems, but front and back fairly similar. These are a fully redundant radio, and you've got the rectifier. So we've got a fully redundant, dual redundant rectifier because all of this telco stuff runs in 48 volts. And it has all the signals, as you see, running around on the front of the rack as well. Different from broadcast. Broadcast has historically been everything in the back of the rack, but you can see over here how clean the rear end of these radios are. There really isn't a lot going on there. We were wondering early on if this was going to be a hurdle, but it really hasn't caused much trouble at all. And we can actually recess these racks. You can see these are pushed back. The mounting into the middle rack in a 4-post rack kind of gives us some clearance in the front to cover that up and keep it from getting impaired. There's ASI, redundant ASI with a splitter panel, passive splitter panel that's implemented so that you've got one connection that you put into the radio or take out of the radio, and you get your full redundant. How the old radios, the MRC used to have a baseball switch where the transmitter would be, the inactive transmitter would be going into a load. How SAF handles redundancy is they mute the transmitter, the offline transmitter, they mute the ASI ports, and they mute the Ethernet connections so that they're not active. So you're actually just powering up half of your system when you're not transmitting on one side of the radio or the other. So a little bit different implementation, but works just the same as what the old switching process did in the legacy equipments. There's fiber connectivity that is a little bit overkill, but there's fiber connectivity between the ASI module on the left and the IF module on the right. There's a control port and 2 Ethernet ports, 2 physical connections on the radio for bridge across the link. So you actually have ASI as priority 1, LAN 1 is priority 2, and LAN 2 is going to be priority 3. And then the LAN 3 connection is your management and monitoring port. Connection, like I said, on the back, the filter tray slides back. And so we get a kind of a footprint over here on the right side as you're facing the rack to connect the standard feed from the waveguide. In this case, this system had the old legacy UG round connector that then we had to apply a UG to CMR adapter. And those are all parts of our process to make sure that when we get on site, we've got everything that we need and everything that's going to get this system implemented in a couple of day period and overnight if necessary. And you'll be off your old system and onto your new ASI and IP only. Anything else that you've got going across your system, we need to talk about that might need to be still getting from the transmitter to the studio or studio to the transmitter, because these radios will only take ASI or IP. None of the other, no videos, no audios, no T1 if we can, but if we need it, but just any kind of other signals that are going across will need to convert to Ethernet or ASI. And then we, as I said, muting of the baseband or the bridge ports is how we handle redundancy. So the switch is actually a passive splitter for Ethernet when it comes to its use in the system. And we sell a managed switch so that if there's any additional higher level of VLANs and data segregation, you like to keep your management, monitoring, and control on a separate VLAN from your streaming traffic and isolate those two. That's all capable in these switches. Some network or ownership groups are buying their own switches and letting their wizards in IT configure them, and that's all the better for us as well. Jack of all trades and master of a few. And again, we can deploy these in an IP only world, and that's coming faster and faster every day. There's more and more opportunity to just completely get rid of ASI. 310, I'd say, is pretty well done, except for some very limited applications and getting harder and harder to get. And ASI is slowly but surely getting that way as well. Here's some examples of our all outdoor selection, and hopefully somebody takes care of that dog. Got my daughter and her dog and our dog here, and they end up playing fiddle with each other once in a while. Sorry about that. So this is our Integra GS IP only radio with a 1+1 configuration. So you can see we've got dual radios hanging on a coupler that then connects up through a waveguide, flexible waveguide into an antenna. They connect and talk to each other over a fiber connection, and then they talk down to the hut through some surge suppressors and Ethernet connectivity, power coming back up over the radio, up to the radio over the Ethernet, and data going back and forth through that connection. A little bit of a close-up of how that all looks. And we had some older Exalt radios that we had deployed on a site about 8 or 10 years ago, and we just got some pictures of some of those. This was up at Sutro Tower up in San Francisco, and they were so corroded that the aluminum just fused the case to the antenna and had to be broken to get off. And I sent those off to SAF, and they looked at it and said that they were pretty happy with the fact that they'd seen some of those kind of pictures, and they've developed this platform to be much more resilient to some of that corrosion. Certainly this back portion is not metal. It's a composite material, and So they put some thought into keeping their equipment and making some improvements in their equipment to satisfy those outdoor implementations. Well, I wanted to say on this side, the actual power for the RF equipment, the outdoor, it's called an ODU or IRFU, actually comes through the IF cable. IF on these radios is not 70 megahertz like it was in the old days. It's, I think, 140 megahertz and 300 megahertz. So more incompatibilities with all of your legacy stuff, but just the way they chose to do it. And as far as the fiber interconnect and internet capabilities, we would use these type of devices. That lower left is the CX, which implements Pro Mpeg-FEC. So this chassis would be able to take up to 4 signals, converting ASI to IP or IP to ASI, and implementing Pro Mpeg-FEC across the link to another one of these on the other side that would take and utilize that Pro Mpeg-FEC. And it can even be across IP radios. If you wanted to do that, you could use these boxes over these SAF radios and go with an all IP implementation. Save you a little bit of money. Those ASI modules cost something. Just redundancy is a little bit more of a problem when you do it that way. And then the OX one is their latest product, which is a kind of a throwdown box with 1 ASI capable. It can do up to 8 streams in 4 streams out and 8 streams in, but it can only do 1 ASI because of the limitations of this chassis. So I'm asking them do a little more work on something like maybe this chassis implementing that wrist and SRT technology, but it's another one of those things on their roadmap. And every time I talk to DTV Innovations, they tell me, you know how expensive these parts are getting these days, if we can even get them. So there's a lot of that. I think it's slowly subsiding, but you've heard about all the problems that Detroit's had with just making cars because of the lack of chips, and it's happening whether it's switches or purpose electronics or radios for that matter. We're seeing delays in shipping and delays in getting orders. And I keep trying to tell our people, if somebody comes to us and said it's going to be 120 to 160 days, that really tells you they don't know. So start looking for something else if you're getting that kind of feedback. All right, so that's pretty much what I had in the way of going through the technology and the different standards that we're working with, and and some examples of radio equipments that we're selling. So does anybody have any questions? I know a few of those markets a few of those stations out in Syracuse still need some of this equipment, and some of you have it already. Yeah, it's a quiet crowd tonight. Too many mute buttons there. I can see all rushing to talk.
Not too many deer in the headlights, though.
Yeah, nope, that's true. Did you get out of this what you needed, Jim?
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Yeah, we love our SAF radios.
It really was, we were MRC's biggest reseller from when I came to the company. The first projects I worked on were hustling these coffins that must have weighed about 600 pounds, probably about 500 pounds or 300 pounds of metal and 300 pounds of wood in these things, and hustling those things around. So we've got a long history in microwave, and things just didn't work out so well for Vislink, and we've luckily at almost the perfect time discovered SAF and their abilities and engaged them to really work closely with them on getting a product that does everything what they do and better. The better is 5 years and next day replaced on parts. So they wouldn't be able to offer 5 years if they weren't providing a MTBF that's astronomical in their design and development and their testing. They test every radio in a chamber before it comes out. we stage the equipment, configure it up in your station's frequencies and input and output and Ethernet addresses. And then it gets shipped to your site, ready to install and go to work right away. I mean, we've had a little bit of delays in the COVID time because of trying to get people on site and doing a lot more of these installs remotely, where the people at the station are doing all the installation and then we're coming in remotely and verifying and training on the system. So it's really come a long ways. I think we talked to Sinclair. Somebody has talked to them in recent times about what percentage they think they've got upgraded from the old DARs and SCMs, and even DXL 5000s are coming out of service these days, and we're putting in these equipments. But their thinking was that they're about a third of the way through their process of replacing the old legacy equipment. So we had a really we topped last year. We sold as much radios in 1 year as we've done in the 3 previous years altogether. And I think this year is going to be equally as good from what we're seeing right now. We stock the SAP equipment, so we're trying to keep ourselves out in front of our needs, as well as on part shortages and those types of things. So we're being very proactive in getting stocking quotes so that we can respond in 4 to 6 weeks, I would say is our reasonable turnaround time from taking an order to getting it shipped to your site and ready for installation. And then we offer an on-site service where we'll come on in 2 days and we'll Gesundheit, where we'll come on site and in 2 days we'll work with your team, your engineers. We'll get a dedicated effort, get the old equipment out, the new equipment in, and get this system back to the back burner where you like to keep it, where it just simmers along and you don't have to worry about it. Another big improvement in the SAF is the monitoring and management interface, where before you had to go up and push a button and see what the minimum and maximum was, and if it had gone out of service, you didn't really know when that happened. Now there's just a very large amount of graphical data, instant look data that you get through the web GUI, and historical data that's saved over a period of time for dozens of parameters. It'd make your IT guy blush when he goes into these radios and sees all the data that's available and configuration capabilities that are much beyond what broadcasters generally need. But that's all changing as well, like I said. So that was a little more extra that I forgot.
Scott, do you have many stations doing fiber? And if so, are there distance limitations?
We really don't have a lot doing fiber. It's more of a novelty than not. I know I've had people come to me and just specifically say that they're scared to death of fiber just because it's not redundant and it fails more times than not. It doesn't really come close to 5 nines when it really gets looked at, and it's a recurring cost too. That's the real beauty of, you own the licenses already. You buy some equipment to replace it, and you're really setting yourself up for the long run here. As far as maybe we're getting back to the 20 years, 30 years of microwave equipment running. We've had a little bit of a kathunk here in the last 20 years as far as technology changes and those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
So no, not so much fiber, just because of those other reasons of just not as
it's not as reliable. Yeah.
And recurring costs.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You own it. That's the important part. Yep. So if something goes wrong with your radios, we would be your first line of defense and first line of support. And once we validate the problem, we work with SAF to get that replacement part dispatched out of their next day depot up in Denver, Colorado. And if you've got 1+1 hot standby, you're still rolling along just fine while that replacement part's coming up. But we really haven't had a lot of use of those things. So that's in the last 3 years, that's been a good tester of that capability, but haven't had to use it much at all.
Scott, is it okay if we post this to our video site?
Yep, no problem. Nothing proprietary here that I'm aware of. Except that my date codes are a little down, but otherwise continually working on this presentation. Any feedback or recommendations? Anything else that we could maybe talk about at a future meeting? I mean, you guys, did you have Mike Schmidt come in and talk about ATSC3 at a previous meeting?
No.
No.
I'd be interested.
Is Syracuse on ATSC3?
Yes, we are.
Oh, okay. So you guys could give the presentation.
Probably. We're also the hub for Albany, and that one's going next.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Yep, it's kind of a little bit of a lull in ATSC3 here in January, February, which we're enjoying quite a bit because the end of last year was quite the grind, but it's starting up again in March, and like people are getting their feet back under them, and there's a whole lot going on there just to get the lighthouses on the air and start that clock running, and it's like a project times 5 now on these things for us, because you got potentially 5 stations to coordinate in a market, and business is good that way, but it's project management nightmare, and
Yeah.
keeping our sales guys all organized is quite the challenge as well. All right.
No other questions? Well, thank you, Scott. Appreciate you coming out and doing this tonight. And just so everybody knows, I noticed that Jim Ragsdale, our SBE Executive Director, joined us a little after 7 o'clock. I noticed that after I was done with the business meeting. Jim, welcome. And if you have anything to say to the group, go right ahead.
No, thank you, but I'm looking forward to meeting all of you in the fall.
Okay. I am going to share my screen one more time. I thought I had this ready and I didn't. From current slide. There we go. Screen 2. Okay, so there's information up about our next meeting, March 16th, and I hope everybody can join us. And like I said at the beginning of the meeting, please feel free to invite a friend or coworker. The more the merrier here. We appreciate everybody that comes out each month to be part of our meetings and learn something. And I hope we've been helping you out in that way. If you have ideas for meeting topics, please shoot them my way. More than happy to entertain any ideas you might have.
By the way, Tom, you might be interested. IEEE used our November meeting as their meeting this month.
Oh,
What
which
was
one?
November? I don't
Yeah,
remember.
what was that one?
I'm sorry?
What was that meeting? I have it here. But I gotta
When or
listen.
where?
What was the topic? I wonder.
Oh, lithium battery technology.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that was a good one.
What the heck was the name of the company?
Oh, I have to go back to.
Anton Bauer.
No.
Big
I'll
battery.
tell you in a second here.
UPS.
Oh, Tesla.
Seiko.
Seiko, yes,
Oh.
Seiko. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Chris Query. Great.
Cool.
Okay. Well, thanks, everybody.
Yep.
I just have one thing to say to Scott. I don't know, Vinny, how closely you worked with Heartland for the SAF radios, but Jim Pohl was extremely helpful and a real good resource for getting us set up in a very quickly and very efficiently.
Excellent. Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate
Jim
that.
is
I'll
good.
pass that along.
Yep.
Yeah, and we just went through another firmware upgrade. We had a little bug on the transmitter side. And the firmware seems to have fixed the problem. It was a weird problem where the radios were switching back and forth, but it was really unusual. They weren't really sure, but they did a major firmware revision, and that they immediately suggested that we get that installed. So
Yeah,
which we did right away, and everything's been fine.
great. Yep, they've been working on some additional features and functionality, the 2+2 kind of stuff, and every once in a while some other stuff gets broke, and then shouldn't be that way. So like anything, get it working and leave it alone.
Right, if it ain't broke.
There was a good example though of them responding and acknowledging a problem and then coming up with a fix. You can't ask much more from a vendor these days.
Yeah, really good, very good, excellent.
Excellent. All right, thanks. I'll pass that along
Yep.
to Jim. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey,
Have a good night.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Right.
See ya.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
See you next month.
Night.